Hey everybody, this is Jen. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making naan bread. So if you want to know how to make this delicious, easy flattened bread, follow me along right here on Garden Jen's Journey. Okay, to make naan bread, it is very simple. I got this recipe from a mixture of watching Mary's Test Kitchen and Rainbow Plant Life. They both have YouTube channels, so I want to give them credit because this is a combination of both their recipes and techniques. And this is just what works for me and my family. So I'm going to show you how simple this is. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get our yeast proofing. This helps to make sure that our yeast is still good and it gives it time to wake up before we put it to work. I don't know about you guys, but I cannot go to work as soon as I get out of bed. I need that time to wake up. So that's what we're going to do. So I have, this is about 1.25 cups of very warm water and a very sticky jar of honey. There we go. And I'm just going to add about 2 teaspoons of honey to this hot water here. I don't measure it, I just kind of eyeball it. About 2 teaspoons. Then we're going to mix this up a little bit to help that dissolve. Okay, and then to this we're going to add 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. Now you can use the active yeast, the fast rising yeast, it doesn't matter, whatever one you have. So we're just going to add that. And we're going to get that stirred in there. Okay, and we're just going to let this sit off to the side until it wakes up and it starts getting really nice and foamy and creamy. Then you know that the yeast is awake and ready to work. So we're going to get our flour ready. I use a mixture of all-purpose flour and whole wheat flour. It just works out better for me that way. I don't have good success with straight whole wheat, so I do basically half and half. So we're going to do, and again, I mostly eyeball this based on how many times I've made this, and I kind of work with what I got. But we're doing 2 cups of the all-purpose flour and 1.5 cups of the whole wheat. There we go. And then I use the all-purpose flour for the additional flour, or if I need to knead the flour, I use the all-purpose instead of the wheat because it's easier to work with and control that way. So we're just going to get some of that ready. Alright. And then to this, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of sea salt. There we go. And 1 to 2 tablespoons of oil. Now, for those of you who've been following me, you know that I try to stay oil-free as much as possible because oil is an inflammatory and not good for people with chronic inflammatory diseases. But for bread, you kind of need the oil, because this makes quite a few pieces of bread. I'm not too concerned about it. So that's about 1 tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of oil. Alright, our yeast is waking up. I don't know if you can see that here. It's getting nice and foamy already. So that lets me know that this is good yeast and it's waking up. we're going to go ahead and add this in. And I always go get a little bit more extra water, some warm water, in case I need it, because your flour is different. The humidity in your room is different. So one day you might only use a cup and a quarter of water. The next day you might need a cup and a half. So I always go get an extra little bit of water just in case I need it. All right, there we go. So simple as just, we're gonna mix this up together. We want a soft dough. We don't want this to be a stiff dough. We want it nice and soft. But at the same time, we don't want it a sticky mess either. It's a balance. Today it looks like the 1 1/4 cups of water was just enough, maybe a little too much today. And like I said, your environment changes from day to day. And so you kind of have to work with your dough and figure out what you need to do that day. That's where the art of bread making comes in, is you have to learn how to read your dough and figure out what your dough needs. You can see how sticky of a mess this is. This would be pretty good for making biscuits. That's kind of the consistency for making biscuits. But we're not making biscuits, we're making bread. So we're going to go ahead and add this. I'm going to add about 1/2 cup more of flour here. And mix that in. And as this sets, it will absorb the water more, especially the whole wheat. The whole wheat's quite the sponge, and it will absorb quite a bit of this water. So that's why we only do a little bit at a time of the extra flour there. You can see how this really came together now with just that little bit. So now what we're going to do is we're going to let this sit for about 10 minutes and do what's called auto lease or hydration. This is where we let the dough sit and just absorb that water into all the molecules of the flour. And then we'll come back and start working it. That way it gives it time to say, yes, I need more water, or maybe I need a little more flour, without you trying to work too hard against it. So I'm going to cover this with a towel, let it sit for about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and start working this dough. Okay, so we've let our dough sit here for about 10 minutes. Just to give it time to rehydrate, for the flour to absorb the water, so we can see if we need to add more flour or if we're good. And from now on, I'm just going to use my hands and a bread scraper, which I forgot to get, so I'm going to go grab that. But we're doing all this by hand. Alright, got my bun scraper. So we're going to go ahead and put some flour down here. Just get this out of the bowl. Alright. So that's nice and stretchy. That's good. Good, good, good. Good. That's what we're looking for. But she's still a little sticky. So we're going to work this flour that we've got on the board first. And it's feeling like it should. It's nice and soft and smooth. So we might have just enough flour. Let's see, if it starts getting really sticky, we'll have to add some more. Try to use up all the flour that's on the board already before you add more flour. And again, how much flour you have to add depends on how your dough is and the house environment. The drier your house is, the more dough you might have to, or the more flour you might have to add, or the more water. You never know until you start making it. Alright, it's pretty good. So I'm just turning it half circle, folding it over and pushing it out. Basic way to knead bread. See, it's starting to stick, so it needs a little bit more. feels about right. It's not too sticky, still moist, still very much soft, which is what we want. You get it too stiff and it's just going to make a dense bread that just tastes really crappy. So soft is key. One of the ways I found to help me not add too much flour to this is I start spraying my hand with oil if it starts sticking too much, but I don't want to add more flour. That way your hands don't stick. Alright. I don't know if you can see the consistency of the dough. Let me get this cord out of the way. But it's nice and smooth and very stretchy. This is where we want it to be. So roll it up a little bit. Alright. But yeah, that's really beautiful. So I'm going to put this in a sprayed bowl here. Like so. Give it another spray. And we're going to cover this with a damp towel. And we're going to let this sit for 30 minutes or until this has doubled in size. We really want that yeast to have time to do its job. Then we're going to come back and cut her up and get this made into delicious naan bread. So be right back. Okay, so we've been letting our naan bread dough rise here for about 25 minutes. So, looking really good. And I have my cup of coffee here. And I wanted to share something with you today, in case you haven't heard it yet. You see what that says there? It says, "Behold, you are beautiful." And that's Song of Solomon 4:1. But in case somebody hasn't told you today, you are beautiful. Alright, so we're going to take this bread dough here, put some more flour on our board. We're going to really spread it around here. Right. This smells so good already. Now with a bread dough, with most bread doughs, what you want in order to know that your gluten is just right, that it's good and stretchy and is going to make a good structure for your dough, is what's called the window test. You want to be able to pull up your dough and be able to see through it, kind of like you would a frosted window. So if you can get your dough to pull up and stretch really thin, and mine's going to tear because it's not quite there. But if you can get it to stretch really, really thin, or you can see a window through it, you know that that bread dough is perfect. Now, with heavier grains, like we do have whole wheat flour in here, so sometimes it doesn't get that thin, but you can see how thin I can get it before it starts ripping. There's the window right there. But that, you can see that that is perfect. That lets you know that that gluten is ready to go. So, that's your gluten test. We're going to get the air out of this, just so we can get working with it. We're going to cut this into, I usually cut it into 12 pieces. It seems to work pretty good with the amount of dough I have. So we're just going to cut this in half. And then I roll it up again into a log. Try to get it a little bit more uniform. I'm going to cut that in half. Okay. Do the same with this one. Okay. Okay. And then I cut each log into 3 pieces. Now you can cut each log into 2 pieces and then you get the 8 pieces. And that works too. But for me, I find that 12 pieces seems to be a good number usually. But I'm going to do 8 today. I'm going to, well, maybe not. This one's a big piece of dough. But we'll see what we get. You want them to be about uniform size, so kind of got to go with what you see here. And we're going to roll it out really, really thin, so this ball will go a long ways. Let's see what we got here. Alright. So we're going to take a little bit. There we go. Alright, so we got our 12 pieces here. Alright, so we're going to cover this back up with a damp towel. You want it damp so they don't dry out. I'm going to take one at a time. I'm going to roll it out. And for this, you can either roll it out into a circular shape if you want. It makes a very nice circle shape. But I like to stick with kind of the traditional shape of naan, which is more of a oblong shape. So I kind of get it as wide as I want it. And then I'll turn it around and we're going to go long. And the dough is very, very elastic, which is good. Just means you have to work with it a little more to get it to roll out. And we're going to go just a little bit wider because it shrunk on me. Yesterday when I made these, it wasn't quite as elastic, so it was very easy for me to roll out. So there we got basically one done. I'm going to go ahead and get 2 more of these done, and then I'll take you over to the griddle where we're going to need to get these cooked. So I'm going to slide this over here. Definitely looks like I need to iron. Not iron. Ha, that's funny. I need to flour my rolling pin here. There we go. There we go. I got 3 pieces of naan bread, which fits perfectly on my griddle. So let's go over to the griddle and I'll show you how to cook these. Okay, so this is just a standard griddle. You can definitely cook these on the stove in a nice hot pan, wide bottom pan, flat pan. It works too, but for me, I can get 3 naan breads at a time on here, so it's more efficient. This I have all the way up to 400 degrees, so it's nice and hot. This is a non-stick griddle, so I really don't have to spray it or anything. I just set my bread on and we go. So let's get that bread cooking. Alright, so we got the 3 on here. Usually as I'm getting them on, I go back and I roll out some more and then I come back. See how this one here is starting to get bubbles on it? That's perfect. This is the time we want to go ahead and flip this. These get flipped quite a bit because we don't want them cooking too much on one side and not the other. The trick here is to keep flipping them every 15-20 seconds or so. You see these big bubbles here and here? Kind of just press on gently It helps the air pocket travel through the rest of the bread, and it's what makes it all very light and airy. So you're not trying to pop the bubbles, you're trying to get them to push through the rest of the dough here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Now let's get these other ones flipped. Okay. There we go. See how that air pocket's traveling? That's what we want it to do. Again, we're not trying to pop the bubbles, just trying to get them to basically open up the dough so it cooks evenly on the inside. Alright. Okay. So I'm going to go roll out a couple more pieces, come back over and flip this, and I'll continue to show you how we work with this. So I'm going to flip her again. Yeah, it's getting nice and golden brown there in those air pockets. Okay, we're almost done. There we go, that air bubble's traveling now. See that? Isn't that beautiful? It almost looks like a pita pocket, and pitas cook just about the same way. So naan bread and pita are quite similar. So we're going to let this cook for a few more seconds, and then we'll put it in our towel lined plate. Alright, so I have my towel lined plate here. It's just a tea towel that I have. I'm just going to set these in here. Like so. Now this would be the time if you had herbed butter or something that you wanted to spread over the top. This would be the time to get it done while this is still hot. It will help the butter and oil absorb. Otherwise, just go ahead and cover this up, and we're going to continue on cooking. Laying down our last 3 flatbreads here. Make sure I have enough room for the last one. So yeah, one of the keys to cooking this is as soon as it starts bubbling, kind of like pancakes, when it starts bubbling across the top, that's when you want to give it its first flip. That way the second side can start searing, so to speak, and getting that nice cover. That way the steam and moisture stays inside the dough, and that's what makes it rise along with the yeast and get those nice bubbles that make naan bread so chewy and delicious. If you cook it too long on one side before flipping it, the dough dries out, and then you still get something that's edible, but it's not quite what you're looking for when making this type of bread. So timing is kind of important in the first couple flips. After that, you're just making sure it's evenly cooked all the way through, and it's forgiving. See if I can get this bubble to walk all the way through without bursting it. Sometimes I can, sometimes I end up popping it. Isn't that beautiful how it just puffs up like that? There we go. Oh, she popped. It's alright. There we go. Beautiful. Alright, so here is that beautiful naan bread that we made. Doesn't she look gorgeous? Nice and light and airy. Beautiful. And grab one from the bottom that's been sitting for a little bit. When you tear it apart, it's just wonderful. And this can be used for a variety of things. We like to just grab it and eat it when we're heading out the door. It's good for dipping in hummus, to use for your rice and bean type dishes, your heavy hearty dishes. You can use it for soup. You can also use it if you want to make personal size pizzas. This is a beautiful base for a personal size pizza. So naan bread has a lot of wonderful uses. I make this more than I do a standard loaf of bread, which I do have one of those. I use naan bread more than a standard loaf of bread, just because there's so many uses for this, and it's just delicious. So I hope you liked this video. I will be making another video soon about a different type of flatbread that's just as yummy, and it only uses 2 ingredients. So be sure to subscribe to my channel and follow along, and I will show you the other flatbread recipe I really like. So if you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, I hope that wherever you are, you're wonderfully blessed. So until next time, everybody, bye-bye.